and then we compared it to what the state statutes requires of zoning, and we compiled this into this, okay? So in agriculture A1 district, we went from A1 or A to A1 in the naming of it, and then the max height for the structure is existing is 35 feet, and now we're going to propose 20 feet to the eave. So it doesn't matter how tall your structure is, we're going to measure it from finished grade to your eave height. So if you have a high-pitched roof, it can go as high as it wants. We're not counting the roof. So this way, we're trying to maintain some continuity in our structures.
I got one question.
Sure.
You said this was a comparability to Columbus, North Fork, North Platte.
Any cities in the state of Nebraska that are similar to our size, we compared.
You're saying in population?
Yes, in population, yes.
How does demographics play into that? Because I know we've got a lot older population here in Hastings than any of those cities.
It didn't play, because these changes don't have a lot to do with the demographics, okay? These are the, right now we're trying to comply with state statutes, yes. Okay, right now we're trying to comply with state statutes, which is requiring more missing middle housing, like cottage courts, the more affordable housing. I'm not going to say affordable, but the more affordable housing. So what we did is we went through the whole code, cleaned up the stuff that doesn't make any sense, and we came up with this, okay? So the main concentration on rewriting this code is to allow for slightly increased density. So instead of one person on a lot, we can get two people on a lot, okay, in certain areas. Okay, so the agricultural, instead of a single family unit on a lot like these over here, that's all single family. Okay, what the state of Nebraska is requiring us to do is to allow ADUs to be built on the property. If your lot is big enough, an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. Okay, so that means you can put up to a 500 square foot detached accessory dwelling on your property and rent it out or use it for family or whatever you want. We can't determine that. We're just making it feasible for you to do that. Now, not every lot's going to qualify. Not every district's going to qualify. But we're making it viable in certain districts under certain circumstances. Okay? And we'll get into the lot coverage and stuff as we go through.
Can we have something that describes those statutes? Like what numbers are those statutes?
They are not in here, but I know Ember has another document that we pulled the state statute and she puts it on there.
On where?
It's not in this presentation. Probably we can do it in the next presentation.
So another presentation, so you don't have everything here?
No, this is just the small piece of the big puzzle.
Well, I'm confused. Why are you only showing us little pieces?
Because that's,
Everything at one time and then break it down.
well, if I showed everything at one time, it would take several hours. And people lose focus very easily if we go too far and too deep into the weeds. Okay? If you want a program I can make up, have Ember print everything out for you, we can put it in a pamphlet.
With the statutes that
Yes.
we were talking about?
Yep. No, it's all there. It's just not in, most of it isn't in the presentation because it would make this presentation much longer.
No, I just would like to get those statutes.
Sure, we'd be happy to do that for you. Yep. Because we do that on a daily basis. Everything we look up, the first thing we do is go, what does state statute say? And if it says you need to do this, this is what we put into our zoning regulations. Period. And then if we go, we don't like that, we'll go to all the other communities and find something that we're comfortable with. As long as it meets state statutes, we're good. So we do that comparability with other communities. What does Grand Island do? They're a lot denser than we are. Kearney's not as dense as we are. You know, even though it's a college town, they're not, their lots are not as dense as ours. So we're trying to find that happy medium.
And that's why I asked about the demographics.
Yes.
Because
It does have a certain thing. Yes. We're aging. Yes, we're aging. Yes.
Compared to those other cities that you're trying to say that we're trying to be or want to work towards as being,
Right.
They're growing and we're not.
Well, we're growing in a way that we can't measure. Okay?
So how do you know you're growing if you can't measure
Because
the growth?
every house that's being built is being sold. Every apartment that's being built is being filled. Okay? We look at The theater district, we've got a 78 plex that's 55 and above. It's 80% full, okay? The 55 flats, it's a 55 plex. It's about 70% full, okay? There's a lot of units there. And then the new apartments, the Pioneer Trails that were built over behind Menards, those are 3 apartment complexes, were filled before they finished them, okay? Does that tell you that there's a demand for housing
Well, I'm
units?
not saying that
Yeah.
there isn't a demand. It's just,
It's hard for us to track it because the numbers, our population isn't growing. Our population hasn't changed in many, many years.
that's,
Is it people that are currently living here just changing residence?
Some of that is, and we're getting people, like half the employees that work with the city were living in Grand Island because they couldn't find a place to live here. So now Ember, the girl that works with me, she moved here. She's living in the Elman 26 complex, okay? It's hard to track that leakage in a population survey. So the Pioneer Trails is full. Dave says he's got a good, for the new Dave Rippey complex over there off of Laux, those new modulars that they brought in. He says they're filling up as fast as he's expecting them to. And the rents on those are $2,200 a month. Okay? So all the apartments in town, even the Metzger property down on Franklin and G, that's filled up before they were even finished. So to me, the demand is there. Okay, all of our studies say that we need 90 units a year for the next 10 years to fill our housing needs. Is it single family? Is it apartments? I think it's a mix of everything.
my next question, all these, what's the long term? I mean, I know all these are just new, so they're getting filled.
Yes. Long term, you're
What
going
kind of, what kind of turnaround is there right now?
up
A
on
lot of those are college kids going to the tech.
Yes. Mhm.
College, well, they're going to be,
Yes.
okay.
And that's changing too, because the college just built a 320 room dorm that all the kids are going to be.
Exactly.
So that's going to hopefully open up more choices for people that want to live in an apartment. Because now the college kids will have to live on campus. Market will take care of some of that. Okay, not all of it. But as you start filling all your needs, that demand starts to slow. I don't think we've hit that point yet. I think we've got 2 years before the demand starts to tick down. Then we're going to be looking for other avenues, cheaper places like cottage courts, where it costs $40,000 to build a little college or a cottage. 2 bedrooms, just something simple, no maintenance. That's still a viable option. So as our demand changes, so does the needs. And we just have to be able to write our codes to be flexible in those needs. Right now, they're not flexible. We don't have a mobile home zoning district. Where do we put them? In an industrial district with a CUP, which is a conditional use permit. Well, we don't allow residential and industrial. So does that make any sense? No. So we're trying to clean up that code to help us grow. Is it the answer for everything? No. And all the answers are not in this presentation. But please, I'll answer any questions you have, okay? Minimum lot area currently is 217,800 square feet, and we're gonna bump that down to 50,000 square feet, okay? That is the average size of what we took a poll of all the communities our size, and 50,000 fits about in the middle of that, okay? The minimum width is currently 100 feet, we're gonna go 200 feet. Lot coverage currently is 30%, and we're not gonna mess with that. Front setback is currently 50 feet, and we're not gonna change that either. We're gonna leave it at 50 feet. Side setback is 15% of lot width, and that goes from 15 to 25 feet, and we're just gonna make it a single number of 25 feet. Street side setback, we got some pushback on this from Planning Commission. Right now, we don't have a street side setback, but we're gonna make that 50 feet. The rear setback right now is currently 50 feet. And we're gonna make that 25 feet, okay? And this is the reason we went 25 feet is if you wanna if you have an agricultural property and you want to put an accessory dwelling unit in it, that's where you're going to put it as your rear yard. So we're making room for that to happen. The minimum building footprint right now is 650 square feet, and we're bumping that down to 200 square feet. So allow for the tiny homes and stuff like that and the ADUs to go in that district. Any questions on ag? That's if there's a street next to your property. You have one in the front and one on the side. There's a side setback requirement. A side, if you're in the middle of the lot, your sides are just between two lots. On a street side, you have a street and a street. So the setback's a little bit different because of vision and parking and stuff like that. Okay, then we got rid of the R1A and the R1S districts, and we created the RO district. So this is your transition from your agricultural lots into a more suburban nature. They're still going to be large.
So I don't know what an R1A and an R1S.
Those are just a classification of the type of lot it is or the zoning of that. It's just still a single family lot. It's just a certain size.
That's what.
Right now, our minimum lot area is 20,000 to 65,000 square feet, and we bumped that to 25,000 square feet. Minimum lot width, we're leaving it at 100, and lot coverage, we're leaving it 40%. So the lot coverage is just all your structures on your lot count towards your lot coverage. So your principal structure, your ADU, your garage, that all counts as coverage of your lot. Front setback is currently 35. We're not moving that. We're leaving it at 35. The side setback, we're moving it from 10% of the lot width to 15 to a fixed number. Street side setback, we're leaving it at 25 feet. The rear setback is 20% of lot depth currently, and we're moving that to 25 to allow for that ADU unit to be put in the back. And the minimum building footprint is what is currently 650 square feet, so we're bumping that down to 500 square feet.
So what happens if, like, right now, this is just a what if, you know, the street side setback, or the side setback can be between 10 to 25, you're gonna make it 15. So what happens if it's currently?
Right now, it's 10% of your lot width. No, we're just allowing people to fill a little bit more of that property in. Okay, like I said, we're going for a little bit more denser. So to do that, you have to reduce your setbacks a little bit. Not a lot, but a little. Okay, this is a 3D modeling that kind of lets you see what we come up with as far as lot coverage. You see the structure on there, then the blue area is your buildable area. So we're still way below our buildable area. And this is an example of an RO. This is on South Wabash. It's just a single family structure on a large lot. And now we move into our R1 district. And this is where we changed the name from single family to low density. That's where I talked about tweaking the density a little bit. We want a little more denser in this district. Okay, the maximum height, we're going from 35 feet to the 20 feet measured to the eave, which will give us the same type of structure. It's just easier to measure because it doesn't matter what roof you're putting on. Okay, minimum lot area is currently 7,000 square feet, and we're bumping that down to 6,500 square feet per unit. So if you wanted to put 2 units on that, you'd have to have 13,000 square feet. So not every lot is going to qualify for that. There is a few lots that would qualify for that. Or if you bought the house next door and tore it down, you could put it into one lot and have 2 units on it. Minimum lot width, we're going from 70 feet to 65 feet. And lot coverage, we're not changing. Front setback, we're not changing. Side setback, we're changing it 10% of lot width to 5 feet. And the reason we're doing 5 feet is that it's the minimum distance between each structure on both sides of the lot line to allow for the 10-foot for fire protection. Street side setback, it is currently 15, and this is a planning commission pushed back a little bit on the 10, so I'm going to do a little bit more research and see if we have to bump that back up to 15, because people do park on that side, they do have driveways on that side, so I want to make sure if we do that, that it's safe to do it at 10 feet. If it isn't, then we'll bump it back up to 15. The reason we went to 10 is, like I said, to create better lot coverage if you were doing another unit. Rear setback, we're going 20% currently, 20% of lot depth, and we're just going to make it a 25-foot. So we'll measure that off the rear lot line, and that's your backyard setback. Minimum building footprint is currently 650 square feet, and we're bumping that down to 200 square feet to allow people to build those ADUs again. We are using the IRC as a guideline, and the IRC says 200 square feet is the minimum you can have a structure to have all the amenities of a dwelling unit. And this is another 3D modeling of an R1 district. The one on the left, the existing regulations, you see the structure in there, and then your blue is your lot or buildable area. Now, the new regulations, we're allowing just a little bit more of building area, so we can allow more for more structure and additional structures. You good back there? Okay. Here's a real-world example. This is up in off of 33rd Street or 35th Street. This is one of Dennis Ingles' single-family residences. That lot's big enough. If you wanted to put an ADU in the back, you could build a 200 square foot ADU in the back and rent it out. R2 is where it gets a little stickier. Our density gets creeping up a little bit more. Maximum height, we're going from the 35 feet max to the 20 foot to the eave. The minimum lot area is currently 3,500 to 6,000 square feet, and we're bumping that down to 4,000 square feet per unit. Notice the per unit. So if you wanted to put 2 units on it, each unit would have to have 4,000 square feet each to be able to build that accessory dwelling unit. Minimum width, currently they range from 35 to 50 feet, and we're proposing 40 feet width to get to that 4,000. 40 by 100 is 4,000 square feet. So we're trying to make everything tie together reasonably to be consistent. Lot coverage, we're going from 40% to 50%. That's going to allow for increased density in an R2 district, okay? Front setback, we're going from 25 to 20. Once again, that's allowing for additional structures on that property. Side setback, 5 feet. Street side setback is going from 15 to 10. The rear setback is going from 20% of lot depth to 20 feet. The minimum building footprint is going from 650 square feet to 200 square feet. So that doesn't mean you have to build a 200 square foot. That's just the minimum size of structure you can build. And here's a 3D modeling that on the left is the existing regulations. You can see there's a lot of blue there. Now we're starting to fill up that blue with more structures. That's where our density is going to come in. We're trying to get a little bit more density in these areas to allow for that missing middle, to make more affordable housing, because the more units you divide your cost out, the cheaper it is for those units.
When you build one in your backyard or rent out or whatever, does that have to be on separate water and sewer then?
We're still working those things out. Some of that is a landlord decision, some of it is ours. We haven't crossed that bridge yet, so there's a lot of things that we haven't. There's still a lot of technical issues that we have to overcome to make this viable. Real world example, this is over on East 7th Street. It's a fourplex, and it blends in with the neighborhood. You can't even tell it's there because the majority of the stuff is off the street and you can't see it. So this is what a typical R2 neighborhood would look like. Historic house districts are a little bit different, Okay, if it's in a historic district, then there's caveats to that. I'd have to look at because there's several districts that we're looking at, because we're working on the CLG to create those historic districts and register them with the state of Nebraska.
So is that a city thing that they register?
Well, we're using, yeah, we've had a couple of meetings with CLG already. You can petition to put your house in a district or increase the district size to include your house. And then we take that to the state. We'll have another meeting here this summer to kind of finalize our districts, and then that'll get into an ordinance. Then we give that to the state of Nebraska, and then they accept it as historic districts. So we're not even close to that yet, because there's still going to be some decision-making to get the right houses, the right area, the whole 9 yards. So we're not quite close on that one yet. R3 is a little easier. That is your high density, that's your apartment houses. We're trying to create districts that only those will be allowed in. So like Elmwood 23rd or Elmwood 26, that's your R3 district, okay? That's what it would look like, okay? Do we need more of those? I don't know. You tell me. They're filling up. The demand is there. The only one that's not filled is one we haven't given them a CO on yet. So people are renting them.
Yeah, I think younger people are wanting that because they don't want to deal with the
Yes.
responsibility.
Yes.
of their property.
Everything else, yes. So, yes, that'll be a good example of what an R3 district will be. Now, is it all going to be like that? Probably not. But it'll be your higher density, your highest density that will allow. Existing regulations, the maximum height is currently 35 feet. And now we're going to go to 60 feet to the eave. So that's going to allow for more density going up instead of out, okay? Minimum lot area is currently 2,500 to 8,000 square feet. And we're proposing 2,000 square feet per unit. So if you have a 22 unit, you multiply that times 2,000. That is the size of that lot, okay? So we're forcing them into a certain footprint. We don't have a lot of land to give them for spreading out, so we're making them go up, okay? Minimum width is currently 20 to 75 feet, and we're proposing 40 feet. Lot coverage, currently we're at 50 feet, or at 50%, and we're proposing 30%, okay? Because you have to have parking. You have to have green space. So there's a lot of caveats that you have to go with your higher density. So we're accounting for that in your lot coverage. Front setback currently is 25 feet, and we're proposing 15 feet. Side setback is 10% of lot width, and we're proposing 5. Rear setback is 20% of lot depth, and we're proposing 15 feet. The minimum building footprint is 650 square feet for a single-family house, and we're proposing 500 square feet per unit. So there's a lot of the new ones are anywhere from 500 to 1,000 square feet. Your studio apartments are going to fit into that 500 square feet.
You mentioned parking, what's the regulation on that?
We're trying to make it fit. Right now, our current regulations require 1.5 parking spaces per unit. Okay? Is that too much or is that not enough? We're trying to determine that. Because we don't want to overburden them with 10,000 square feet of parking space if they don't need it or use it. But we also have to count if there's 22 units in it, there's going to be a minimum of 22 cars.
What do the other communities do?
It's a mix. It's a mix. There is no standard, okay? If you go to the casino on a busy weekend, can you get in there? No. There are 1,000 parking spaces short of what they should have based on the occupancy of all the structures there. So we're trying to find a happy medium between what's required and what's actually going to be used, okay? And we're working on a formula that the building will be a certain percentage, landscaping will be a certain percentage, and your parking will be a certain percentage. And we'll all equal 1 at the end. All right, there's our 3D modeling for existing regulations. And as you can see in the proposed regulations, we're just getting higher to get the density, to make it more affordable. Does it make it more affordable? That's not for me to say. I don't control rents. But the more units that you can put on a lot, the more return on your dollar there is for an investor.
R3, you can't build a single family home?
Yes? No, you can't. We took that out. Because what's the character of your R3 district? It's high density. Does a single family structure fit that character of the neighborhood? Old neighborhoods, yes. But as that neighborhood transitions into higher density, look at 7th Street by the college. That was all single family at one time. What happened to all those large houses? Now they're high density because they turned them into apartments, because that was the cheapest way to do it. So now our regulations are going to try to account for some of that. But remember, don't worry. If you have a single family in an R3 neighborhood that gets changed, I'm not going to say grandfathered in, but you're legal non-conforming because it was built under the code at the time, so you're good to go unless it burns down or you want to make changes. So there is some protection for you. Not a lot, but there is some protection. Okay, this is an example over there.
Just nothing there in an emergency.
What's that?
Just no protection in an emergency.
No.
I guess one of the questions I have is, you have a place, whatever, on a particular lot, and you end up changing that zoning for a lot that you have right now. How, because a person might have plans, she has some plans for hers. Okay, you have plans for that, but like you just said, if you wanted to do some additions or other stuff, you're not going to be allowed to do that.
Well,
how does
your addition's not going to affect the density of that neighborhood.
right? But my question is, how can I bought a piece of land and I'm using it for a particular purpose, and now the city's coming in and changing it, and I understand the future, all that stuff, but I'm the one that bought that land. I'm the one that pays taxes on that land. I'm the one that had my plan for that plan, or for that land. How, and now I just got handcuffed.
Well, we're not trying to handcuff.
I know you're not trying to, but I'm a little
Some
concerned about some of this.
situations, we're going to limit your ability to do things, okay? That's the nature of zoning. Every time you change zoning, you change what the effects going down the years, okay? But this is why you're here tonight. If there's pushback on, say, a certain aspect of this, we'll go back and, okay, can we change that aspect to make it so it's not a hardship on you or you or you, okay? I'm trying to take that into account. No one has ever done that before. Okay, can we make it work? Ember and I are doing our best to make it work. Not all of this is going to be perfect.
Oh, I know that. I've been in enough things that I know you can't make it right for everybody. But
we're really
there's a
trying
reason
hard.
why
Yes.
we're here.
Yes.
Because we're concerned about something.
Yes. And you have a right to be concerned.
And we want to make sure that you get that
But
feedback.
if you voice your concerns, I can take it back and go, okay, how are we going to change this? What can we make better? What can we change to allow for these uses, okay, or the density? We can look at that.
Okay. Now I have another question with these densities. The infrastructure that I'm seeing here for Hastings, for a lot of these areas, is not adequate.
Some areas, yes.
Because you put a high density air population thing like, we'll say our lots, there's no way the city or anybody could ever be able to do that.
No, and that's,
And I take it into effect. You just have to go out here to Lake Hastings area. I mean, you get more than somebody pissing on the ground, and it floods everybody's yard because the city didn't adequately provide. They allowed construction
yes,
that should not have been done.
that I will agree with.
And there's a lot of that around here that's already causing problems that, for some of these houses that aren't getting sold because they know they have these problems. Shouldn't the city be fixing those problems?
Well, if
To get
The city could fix it. Shouldn't it be the developer that started the
Why
subdivision?
hasn't the city pushed that with these developers? Because you're gonna end up with more and more of that with these type of construction.
Well, I
Unless
would,
this-
I would tend to agree with you, but what we do now is we have engineering meetings. We just had 2 meetings today. There's a company that is coming in and wants to build more houses. Okay? So we, as a city, go, okay, what do we got and what do we need to provide to them? Okay? If it's streets, the developer pays for the streets to our standards. Okay? Now, if it's water, this area that they're building already has an adequate water supply. Okay? They have an adequate sewer supply. Okay? The only thing they don't have is stormwater management, and they're going to fix that with some studies. Okay? We're doing a much better job of looking at the bigger picture. How does this affect the city? Because we're the city. Everybody that pays tax in the city is the city. Now, if you wanted all these things to be fixed in
Well, I'm
North
just saying,
Shore.
a lot of these areas
Yes.
that are, the new growth is.
yes,
That are having severe problems.
yes.
And it's like, why didn't the city correct that when they were dealing with the developer at the time?
There's a lot of attributes that are out of my control.
Well, and that's, and I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
But that is still within the cities that somebody.
Should be responsible for it,
It
yes.
should be, yeah, somebody should. be
I can't argue with that, yeah.
And if they're not doing their position, their job, they should be gone. And they should
It's
be-
not that simple, but yes.
Well,
Yes.
it's still, you know, I mean, if it's an elected position that the council's allowing certain developers.
But I think that's where, because, you know, too, that changing what's happened in the past is
Well,
impossible.
Exactly,
But
but it should be monitored
we should be able
more.
to, yes,
and like-
it should be more apparent or transparent, that's what I wanted to say.
Transparent, and we're trying to do that with our developers. We're having more to, since I've been here 4 years, okay? The first thing I learned is, hey, we used to do walkthroughs when we were in Sydney, in Alliance. If somebody wanted to come do, okay, let's walk through and tell us what you're doing. Because that's the first thing we need to know is, what are you doing? And then we apply our codes to that. We do that here, but we do it in an engineering meeting because Lee's there, Tyler's there. Okay, do we have adequate water there? Yeah, we only have a 6-inch line, so we're going to have to put a 12-inch line. Okay? We're getting much better at providing the services to these areas that are being developed. Stormwater is still not the best in the world.
I just want to make sure that we're not, and this is tough to control, but I think what probably happened in the past was I took care of someone and let that go through. We got to stop that crap. Okay?
Well,
Because it's not gonna fall into your plan.
I know, it's not happening on this current watch.
Okay, and like, you know, the developers that are doing these things, well, to me, if you didn't take care of the problem before, we're not gonna let you develop over here because
I
I
agree
know
with
you
you.
can say yes
I
or
agree
no,
with
it's
you.
hard to do,
Yeah.
But the city has that power to say,
Yes,
no,
they do.
you cannot until you finish fixing that one.
Yes, they do.
So,
We're
I'm not seeing that.
going through that with Franklin and G Street.
Do you guys live on Franklin?
No,
I live right off of Franklin.
You live right off Franklin. You are.
But there was issues with the engineer on that project.
here in town, where it's getting.
They didn't follow the rules. They had a set of plans in front of them. Nothing was ever checked. So we're not accepting that street until
Getters.
follows the rules.
Well, everything around it.
Yeah, you can see a lot of problems that were happening out there.
But we haven't accepted anything because we haven't accepted anything there. We haven't accepted the water test. We haven't accepted the sewer test. Nothing's been accepted because we know it's going to fail.
I mean, but
Yeah, it seems like there's constant work going on.
There's fixing of things.
Yeah, fixing them, that's a good way to put it.
So the city is getting better at being aware that this costs everybody money. If we accept something bad, everybody pays that price. So we are aware of that. Mark is aware of that. Jay is aware of it. Engineering is aware of it. So that's why we're doing our due diligence to the best of our abilities.
so for like their lot location on south, we'll call it South Baltimore, East Street.
Yeah,
South
East Street.
Baltimore. For me, I live on South Baltimore past. I'm outside the city limits.
Okay.
I know you probably
Oh, yes, okay, yes.
I fall into the city jurisdiction.
Yeah, you're within the 2-mile jurisdiction,
I
yeah.
have my 20 acres.
Mm-hmm.
And I applied for a building permit for the barndominium.
Mm-hmm.
They said, you can't build it.
Who told you that?
They said it didn't fall in the city code because I don't have this. I have 20 acres, but I have an 8-acre lake in the middle of my property. So that's not livable space.
Well,
But Adams County.
they probably said no.
That 8-acre lake.
Right. They probably said,
I can't do that 8 acre. I can't make a freaking dime off it.
right. They probably said you have to subdivide it to build another house on it.
Which is absolutely asinine.
Well, there's county code and our code for that. You're only allowed one principal residence and an accessory dwelling unit on a single lot. If it doesn't matter if it's a 2,000 square foot lot or a 20-acre lot. Okay? The rule, state statutes requires you to subdivide to create different lots. Up to 500 square feet. But it sounds like he wants to build a big house.
I'm building a shop.
Yeah, he's,
I'm building a shop. With
Well, a barn dominium is not a shop.
No, I'm a barn dominium. I'm building a shop. That's not residential.
No, that's not. That has nothing to do with residential.
I can have my
And
office as big as I want.
under,
But I know where these guys are located.
Right.
I grew up in that part of town.
that's probably why they said no, because it was on one lot. And if you're building a large enough structure, our current code does not allow you to do that. So if you want to subdivide and create a 15,000 square foot lot, have at it.
So what's, so like, so he can just take his lot and then say it's 4 lots? Turn it into 4?
There's a process for that. We call that, if it's not adding easements or infrastructure or anything like that, the lots have to be big enough to meet sewage requirements for the state, because he's probably going to have to put a septic tank in.
I've already got 2
Okay.
septic tanks, but the state and federal government's trying to make me eliminate my wells.
Yes. They're trying to get everybody on city water.
Your city water stops on my property.
Right. So
So I have
there's a,
zero fire protection for you guys.
right. And there's a lot of caveats to that, okay?
But again, so we have a 2-mile jurisdiction. There's houses south of me in the 2-mile jurisdiction with zero fire protection, 0 city water. What are those residents 2 miles south of me getting from the city other than you can't?
Well, if they're outside the corporate city limits, they're not paying anything. They're not paying for those services. Only people within the corporate city limits are paying for those services. Only for zoning issues, zoning and building codes. Okay?
Is that through Hastings or through the state?
That is through the city of Hastings. Okay? That is for the ability of the city of Hastings to control the growth around them, so we don't have a hog farm or something that's detrimental to the community. And unfortunately, it affects a lot of people.
But where I'm at, people don't know that there's an active chemical algae bloom between Hastings and Kubo. That's contaminated groundwater. Who's paying for that?
The EPA will probably come in and do that, because we have a similar situation.
They've already done it once with Garvey at Center Court. They installed filtration systems on it.
Pumped it back in.
Dean Rolls died from Tetra Chloride cancer. My lake is well running all the time.
Right. It's irrigating itself.
You know what I get from it? I just get my utility electric bill for a 25 horsepower motor running 24 hours a day, 365 days a year.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
But I gain nothing from it.
Right. Well, the situation that I ran into in,
Well, I mean, I'm not. I moved there because I wanted my privacy and I wanted to be able to move my land. That's similar to what everybody else has done. And now I'm being told I can't do this because
I'd have to know all the stuff before I say anything to it.
I'm just asking questions because it seems like we're worried about high density housing. We're worried about this. I've said in the meeting, heard how many rentals we need that are, you know, in my position. I've shoved out.
Right.
But being shoved out for my
That's what we discussed earlier before you got here. That's a demand that we can't track, okay? That demand for single units, apartment, two-bedroom apartments. People are living in Lincoln and Omaha for Hartwell and driving back and forth every day because they can't find adequate housing there. So is the demand there? I would say yes. For what? I can't tell you, but we're having apartments. All the apartments
How
are.
long will that demand be?
What's that?
How long will that demand be?
Heartland's been 3.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And for an additional how many more years?
2 years for them.
Yeah, they're gonna be fully operational by the end of the year.
So then that demand won't be there.
Well, that demand, but HEP, Chief Ethanol's doing the expansion. There's proposed projects south of town that will require 150 to 200 housing units.
But is
Okay, but these are all short-term.
They are short-term, but short-term rolls into something else, something else, something else. If you don't have the units, they go somewhere else. They go to Blue Hill, they go to Red Cloud. They go
I don't want to, but, I know, Caleb Campground. He wanted to expand, he wanted to put another 150 lots.
Right, and we know the city with money.
They said he would let it. That's what the contractors want.
Right. They want portable.
They-
That's why we allowed them to go into Smitty's trailer court. Kingswood has a few of them, not as many. The other small trailer courts don't have a lot. But Smitty's has, what do we say, 35, 40 lots available. Put your camper in there, plug it in, and you're good to go.
Yeah, they just have to pay us what's in the
Yes.
They're
Well, there's already things. They just take the cap off and put their sewer in.
back up a lot.
Oh, I know. It's not perfect. Let me re-log in. Oh, you're fine. No, I want questions. I told everybody. Like I said, I may not have all the answers. Like I said, none of this is perfect, and this is the first shot in the dark. So like I said, things could change. This is our first attempt at trying to find something that works for the city of Hastings. Will it? Don't know.
So when you get through this a little bit quicker or can we ask specific?
Yes. Yep. No, you can ask anything you want. Okay, this is one that does not exist currently. Okay, we do not have a place for our mobile home courts. Okay, we just require a conditional use permit, and they're in an industrial district, so that doesn't work. So we created an R4 residential village district, and maximum height we're changing from 35 feet to 20 feet to the eve. Minimum lot area we're proposing 2,000 square feet per unit. Minimum width is 40 feet, because some of your mobile homes now, or your manufactured homes, are 18, 20 feet wide, or double wides. Yes, basically that's all there are, is modular homes built in a factory. They come in and set them on the foundation. So we're trying to accommodate that in this district. So this is.
Modular home is what you consider a mobile home?
Because all your mobile homes out in the mobile home courts, they have the steel frame on them, but there's no wheels. And this, yeah, they do. When they move them out, they'll put them back on. But they're required to be removed, and the trailer has to be anchored down. Lot coverage, we're going from 50% to 60%, just to allow for a little bit more density. Front setback is going from 25 feet to 15 feet. Side setback is 5 feet for your fire clearance. Street side setback is 10 feet, which we're going to look at that again. Rear setback is 15 feet. Right now, all the trailers they're moving into Schmitty's are 80-foot trailers. Those lots were designed for 65-foot trailers. So how much room is there? They're right up against the gas meters and right up against the road. So we're accounting for all that. Yes, yes. Minimum building footprint is currently 650 square feet, and we're bumping that down to 200 square feet. So included in your residential village district, we're going for tiny home communities. It's like small areas that would be built for tiny homes or cottage courts.
So that'd be similar to the gentleman between 12th and 9th on Minnesota, or Minnesota Avenue.
Yes, something similar, not quite that big. But courts, little cottage courts. We want 500 to 750 square foot structures. They're slab on grade, they're cheap, they're affordable, and they're served by one road.
Place on the 9th Street, is that?
Yes, that's a cottage court.
Yes, east side.
So we're trying to encourage more of that. That's helping fill the missing middle. Okay? And this is our 3D modeling for our R4 district. The left is the tiny homes. As you can see, the lot coverage isn't 100%. So we're going up 2 stories. Cottage courts, that's just a version of it. There's many versions of it. So our lot coverage is still way below that percentage.
So R4 and R3 are basically.
R3 is your high density, that's your apartment houses that have 22 units in a building. That's your high density. R4 is more of your smaller structures in a court type sector or court types setting or your mobile home courts.
That's still really dense, just not.
Yes, yes.
So would that be like what's on Franklin?
No, those are duplexes. Those are slab on grade duplexes. And that one we had to rezone to R3P to fix some setbacks issues. To the north of that is C3, which allows for, C3 is highway commercial, which allows for multifamily units to be built there, so we don't have to do anything with zoning on that one.
You just brought up something from before with that, you had to change it, they put those in, you had to change the zoning. Well, why in the beginning didn't you have it either changed before he developed it, or make the developer change it back to conform to the district?
Here's the issue with that one, okay? The multifamily was allowed in that district. What they didn't do is they didn't set the pins correctly, so the front setbacks were not according to that district. So what they did, instead of moving the houses, we changed it to an R3P to allow for a different setback requirement.
So you just made it easier for him because he screwed it up.
Their surveyors did not perform their duties. So am I going to make them drag a house 15 feet to one direction? No. That was the simplest way to solve that problem.
But again, if you're checking the building plans, it should have been noted that before they started building.
Nobody caught it until the houses were built. Because what happens if the pins aren't set, Sue? How do you reference anything?
Well, and I understand
Yeah.
because she deals with it.
She deals with it all. That's why all the surveyors in town got 155 letters, because they're not putting corner pins. She can't do her job until she knows where the corner pins are.
I know that, but that's, again, it's still, the surveyor, they should not have been able to start building prior to everything being in place correctly.
People are gonna make mistakes. Not everyone
Yes.
is perfect.
And I understand that.
So when somebody makes a mistake and it's too late to fix it, you just gotta deal with it.
But how often does this continuously happen?
On that one, that was the first time I've ever seen that happen.
Really? Okay.
And that's not the only thing they didn't do right on that one. There's multiple things. That was Mesner Development. So their engineering firm came to us and asked for that rezoning. Okay, we didn't do it on our own. We made them apply for an RP3 or R3P. So, yes, we charged them. Just like it cost them $500,000 to dig up the street and redo all the sewer. It wasn't our dime, that was their dime. Because they have to build it to our standards. If they don't build it to our standards, we don't accept it. None of the testing was done, so we made them do the testing. The testing failed. So they had to dig everything up and redo it at their expense.
Was that on the pressure test or was that on the concrete?
All of it. All of it.
It was a freaking mess.
I'm just curious what testing we did that said it failed.
Well, they didn't perform any tests. They put the sewer in the water and the streets in with no test whatsoever. Because their engineering firm is supposed to be responsible for that. Because it's a private street until we take it over.
I do understand that.
So,
I put in new fire hydrants at HEP, it cost me $1 million. Guess who's out there? Our fire safety risk officer. Mm-hmm. That testing.
yep. Mm-hmm.
Sure as hell not gonna cover up the concrete.
Let's just
Screwed a lot of shit up on this.
let's just say they learned a very, very expensive lesson. They did a multiple layer thingy on that one. There's some affordable housing tax credits and stuff like that with that. Multiple layers. So their margins were not enough. Theirs is the cottage court over there on 9th Street. So we're trying to encourage a little bit more of that development. Not a lot, but a little. And we're trying to mix that into some of our zoning codes to allow for that. The next one we created is a mixed use, which would be all your college campuses, Mary Landing and stuff like that. We're going to require a master plan on those to create just a district for those people. Once they give us a master plan, if they do anything changes, they just change the master plan and they move forward with that. So we're trying to make it a little bit easier for those type of districts. C1 local business district. We are discontinuing the CO district and just going to a C1 district. Maximum height existing is 35 to 45 feet, and we're proposing 20 feet to the eave. Okay, C1 is your local business district. So that's your doctor's offices, your dentist offices, stuff like that that's scattered around town. Maximum lot area is 6,000 to 8,000 square feet existing, and we're proposing 4,000 square feet. Minimum lot width is currently 50 to 75 feet, and we're proposing 40 feet. Lot coverage is currently 50%, and we're going to leave it at that. Front setback, 25 feet for residents only, so if it's a house that's built on it, it has to follow the 20-foot front setback rule. Side setback is 20% of lot width, and we're proposing 5. Street side setback, we're not proposing any changes there. We're leaving it at 15. Rear setback, 20% of lot depth or 15 feet. Minimum building footprint is currently 650 square feet for a single family, or 500. We're proposing 500 square feet for a single family. So C1 allows for a single family residence in it. Okay, it's an allowed use, but it also allows for dentist offices, business offices, stuff like that. That's your transition between your residential and your commercial districts. On the left is the current regulations, and on the right is the proposed regulations. So all we're doing is increasing a little bit of the lot coverage. Here's a real world example. Eckhart's Grocery down on 2nd Street or South Street. That's what we want the character of that C1 district to look like. Now, if somebody wants to argue that, bring me, show me what that district should look like. Okay, C2, we didn't do a lot with that. We just added some caveats, 2,000 square feet per lot, so we don't have tiny lots there. Minimum width, 20 feet. If your lot is 20 feet wide and 100 feet deep, that's 2,000 square feet. So we're trying to be consistent in our C2 district to maintain that historic character of that district.
See that district changing?
No, and we're trying to keep her from changing, okay?
Reality of the world.
Yeah. The only change that you'll see is Planning Commission will have a CUP next month for the middle school, because remember the first time the middle school went through? They wanted to rezone it to R3P, and that did not fit the comp plan or the future land use map. So what do we do? Is that an area that is first floor residential that hurt anything? That's right across the street is first floor residential. So let's change the rules. Let's allow first floor residential, but with the CUP, let's analyze the situation. Okay, it's not harmful to the district. Let's allow it. So that would be coming to planning. So we're trying to protect it, in a way that's flexible. Is that kind of what we're doing?
We're trying, but there's still,
When you have 40, you have 250 hands in the pie, it's hard to get everybody a piece of that pie.
no, I understand that, but on that specific case, it's well, we're gonna build these apartments, but then coffee shop, we're gonna put this, we're gonna put this, we're gonna put this, and as you start, it's like, wait, where's the apartment store? Well, it gets to be dirty hands kind of issue.
Well, and that's where we had another meeting today. They're shooting for 68 units is their unit count. And will there be areas in there for offices? I didn't know that until today. Does that affect the use of that building? It's minor accessory uses, so no.
It doesn't affect the use of the building, the investor has an invested interest in getting his coffee shop in there, or his.
Well, but that's just it.
That's where the.
It's in a C2 district. Now, there's other caveats. He has to have a separation. If it's a coffee shop, that is an assembly use. So you have to have, well, it's going to be sprinkled, so it have to have 1 hour separation between his coffee shop and all the residents. So
You have to have what kind of separation?
a 1 hour rated separation. So his walls and ceiling have to be rated for 1 hour. So if a fire starts in there, it doesn't spread to the residents. For an hour? Yes, for 1 hour. Now, if it wasn't sprinkled, it has to be sprinkled. But if it wasn't sprinkled, then it would be 2 to 3 hours.
But it's tough, because I said on planning and zoning, and it's just like, well, he's an investor. He recused himself, but he still wants to do this stuff, and I'm like, well, I want growth. I do want growth, but I also don't want it to look like the phrase of Hastings that pays is the old dirty dozen. You heard about the dirty dozen in Hastings, and now you have the Thornton. And that's an unfortunate name, but those are the people.
I look at the millions of dollars that they've invested in First Street and other structures in town, and it has improved those areas.
It has, but
I can't see past that.
how much tip financing involved.
A lot. That's the only way some of these projects will come. But that happens in every city in Nebraska, because that's the only economic tool that's been given to these developers.
The average person was, that's a,
Oh, I know.
Hastings just paying them to build buildings, and they're getting to build it, they don't have to pay anything. That's,
All the risk is still on these guys. That's it. If their taxes aren't enough, it comes out of their pocket.
so I understand that, I know how tip financing works, but the average citizen doesn't.
Yes.
And that's where it comes, and I'm not gonna sit and have an argument with people, because
They've got their minds made up and
they've got their money.
Yeah, you're not gonna change that.
You're not gonna win that argument.
The only thing I could do,
free and it's not.
right, the only thing I can do is do my job to make sure all the rules are followed, whether zoning rules or building rules. And if the project comes to fruition and it's finished and it fills up with people, did we just not solve some of our housing problems? How we got there, as long as the rules are followed, I can't care. Yes. Yes. Yeah, that's the CRA stuff, not mine. So, C3, we kind of delineated the C3 district out a little bit. We used kind of 16th Street as our cutoff, because as you get farther north on 281, your businesses change. They're larger. There's larger parking lots. You get your box stores. You get Walmarts. So we're trying to take into that character. So we changed some of the parameters for C3 to match it. 16th Street South, that's a character. That's a C3 district character. So we're trying to maintain that through these regulations. So we created the C4, which is a highway commercial district. So that means more parking lot, bigger structures. It fits that district. As you go farther north, that will take into account all that development. This is the 3D rendering. Once again, it looks like we're going up. Lot coverage is about the same, but we're encouraging people to go up. This is an example of a C3 district. That's Amigos. That's what we want in our C3 district. We don't want a Walmart in it. What would happen if they would buy Russ's and Walmart puts a 100,000 square foot store in it? Does that fit that district? No. So these regulations are going to prevent that from happening. This is your C4 district, and that's Menards. We don't want a Menards in our downtown area. So these new regulations will help control that and protect that district. I-1, we didn't make a lot of changes there. Lot coverage, 50%. These are just things that we compare to other communities of what they did. I'm still 50-50 on some of them. I-2, heavy industrial. We didn't change a lot there either. Right now, there's no lot coverage. We changed that to 70% to allow for parking, truck traffic, stuff like that. Yes. Sure. No minimum lot area, no minimum width, no minimum lot, we're proposing 50% lot coverage. Setbacks at 25 feet. No side setbacks.
He said minimum lot coverage of 50%.
Yes. So your structure can only cover 50% of that lot. So if you have a 100,000 square foot lot, you can build a 50,000 square foot structure. Maximum.
That says minimum. Oh, okay, lot coverage. All right. That's where it was catching my eye.
Right. And that's where we go, yes. But that's where we go back to the formula. If you're building in an industrial district, your building is taking 50%, your parking is going to take 40%, your landscaping is going to take 10%. That's it. Okay. So we're trying to maintain that formula going through the I-1 and I-2. Okay. Any questions on I-2? Any questions, period?
Yes.
Start.
All right. So I have, you know, Sue's lots are